Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now behind me is an EV that is not an SUV. I know, right? Hard to believe they do exist. I promise you, because that's a Hyundai IONIQ6. Now I haven't even driven the Hyundai IONIQ5. That one has passed me by, but I've always heard great things about that car. So when the IONIQ6 came out, I thought, well, that's got to be like IONIQ5, but even better. And it's certainly a car with divisive looks. Let's take a look, shall we? Now, straight away, this car looks sleek and aerodynamic. It's a really beautiful kind of teardrop shape. Looks are subjective, however, and we will talk about the looks in a little while. I just first of all wanted to talk about the different options you have when you buy IONIQ6. So I went onto the UK Hyundai configurator this morning, just have a play to first of all see how much this car is as spec'd, but also to see what the different options are. And I think I'll just pull out my phone and walk through, because there are basically two different model trim levels. There's Premium, which they're from £47,000, or the Ultimate, which is this car, and that's from £50,500. You can then either have a two-wheel drive, single motor, 228 PS drivetrain, or this has a twin motor, 325 PS drivetrain, but you're going to pay an extra £3,500 for that. But that will propel you from 0 to 62 in 5.1 seconds, so you get a lot more performance. However, interestingly, if range is your thing and ultimate efficiency, then you're actually better off going for the single motor, lower powered version, because then you're going to get a WLTP range of 338 miles. You know me, that's a fantasy number, but I would have thought high 200s is going to be possible with this car in favourable conditions. The only other things that this car has above the kind of standard fit, it comes with huge amounts of kit. The Ultimate has 20-inch wheels and lots of toys to play with. This also has the Gravity Gold matte paint finish. Matte paint finishes, you either like them or you don't. I'm not so sure they're going to be great to live with, but that's an extra £885. And then this car also has digital side mirrors, which are £995. I will get to those a bit later on in the video, but I tell you now, save yourself £1,000 and don't spec them. I'm not a fan, but I'll explain why a bit later. So that makes this car on test £55,920. I know 55 grand is a lot of money, but actually if you look in the current EV market for the amount of kit you get on this car and the performance, I actually think that is a pretty good number. Let's talk styling. We'll start off with the front of the car, because there are many good things to talk about on the front of this car. Now the front view of this car is by far and away my favourite. I think it looks really cool from the front, very sleek, very aerodynamic and very elegant in my view. You've got some nice daytime running lights just underneath the main headlamp clusters on either side, but it's these vents I want to talk about. At the moment they're in their open state, but they are active aero, not to provide aerodynamics or downforce, but to provide cooling. And you might think, well, it's an electric car, I don't need a vent or a radiator on the front because there's no engine to keep cool. Well, that's right, there isn't an engine to keep cool, but there is a motor and an inverter and a battery pack that will need cooling at certain times during the drive cycle. And what these vents do is, when cooling is needed, like now, they will open up and airflow will go through radiators and provide cooling. But when it's not needed, those vents will close, and that just makes the car more slippery through the air and increases its efficiency and helps you with improving your range. And I didn't realise they were movable devices until Tracy drove the car out a couple of days ago, and I kind of saw her start the car and they popped open and then they closed back down again. Really very cool. So yeah, I do like the front of the car. What about the rear though? Well, it's edgy, I'll give it that. I'm just not convinced at all. It just feels a bit incongruous to me. I understand it from an aerodynamics point of view. You can kind of see that, you know, as what do they say, Adrian Newey can see air. You could see the airflow coming down. I think if it didn't have this kind of Porsche-esque spoiler on the back, it might look a little bit better and a little bit sleek. And that's coming from me. I always like to have a spoiler on the back. There's some cool LED lighting. I mean, the main light cluster is very sort of borrowed over from IONIQ6. There's some LEDs on top of this spoiler as well. So I get it, but it's not won me over yet. Just in terms of boot and so on, it's because this is fastback shape, you've just got this smaller aperture to open up, and the actual boot size itself is pretty good. It's a kind of saloon format car, right? So I'm not expecting to have massive, gigantic load space. It's more of a saloon size boot, but it's pretty good. And there's some underfloor storage for things like charge cables and stuff. So all in all, not bad. So the boot at the back's not a bad size. I wouldn't really call that a front boot. It's pretty tiny, to be honest. I think it's just about big enough for some charge cables because it's got a whole bunch of all the electric stuff underneath it, which is a shame. But I guess that's where you get some of the space from inside because everything's pretty much up front. But yeah, it's a shame that there's not more space there. Good to put your charge cables though. Now, all versions of the IONIQ6 come with a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery and DC charging. So you've got a CCS charge port in there. However, the charging system on the IONIQ6 is running at 800 volts rather than the normal 400 volts that's a bit more common on other vehicles. And what that means is that the car can keep battery temperatures cooler when rapid charging. So you're able to charge it up to 350 kilowatts. So if you've got a rapid charger, you can pull in and get a good amount of miles in a very short space of time. This car also supports vehicle to load, so you can plug stuff in and charge it up. But I like that a lot. Now, let's have a chat about these digital side mirrors, shall we? I guess a few years ago, these were the thing of concept cars. That was all we saw them on. And then once they were made legal, we're starting to see them on more and more production vehicles. Predominantly EVs, because they have a smaller aerodynamic profile, so they are more efficient. They reduce drag, and that can effectively give you more range. Not huge amounts, but every little bit helps. Aerodynamic wheels, aerodynamic wing mirrors, all of it helps. Those vents on the front of the car, see, they're just folded back in again. My challenge with them is that I've only driven a few cars with them. I drove an Audi e-tron maybe 3 years ago. It was the first car I ever drove with them. Didn't get on at all. And I've also driven a Mercedes HGV Class 1 lorry, a big 40-foot articulated lorry with them. And they actually made sense and worked really well on a lorry. I've got a problem with them in a road car. And I think it's maybe a personal preference thing. Some of you will probably love these. Me, personally, I don't like them at all. Couple of reasons. Number one, when you're driving, it takes quite a while to stop looking out the window at where the mirror would be and look inside the cabinet where the screen is. Now that, I'm sure you will overcome that quite quickly with practice. So that's an initial teething problem that you will overcome. There's a screen on either side of the dashboard on this and you get a view around the back of the car. And under normal driving conditions, the view is great. The two times where, for me, these don't work. The first one is low speed maneuvering, particularly reversing. Because what happens in a road car with normal mirrors is if you move your head in relation to the mirror, you change the perspective in the mirror. So you can kind of do that and look wider or do that and look more narrow. You can look around the back of the car by using the mirror. You can't do that with these because the perspective doesn't change. You can move your head as much as you like, but the image on the screen stays the same. It's just a static view looking down the back of the car. And that, for me, that makes parking really, really difficult. And then the second thing, at night time, I don't think they work particularly well either. I mean, they've got night vision capability, but if it's dark, the view is particularly dark. If it's raining, I'm just not a big fan. And it's almost for me like there's a technology there for technology's sake. Yes, you get an aerodynamic benefit, but for me, I would never ever spec them. The final thing is I've never had a mirror knocked off a car in my life, touch wood. I can imagine if you had one of these knocked off by a passing vehicle, the cost of replacement is going to be much higher than it would be if it was just a normal glass mirror. So I'm not a fan. Now, funky looks on the outside, continue on the inside. Now, there are two colour options when you spec one of these. There's a darker material or this lighter one. And I have to say, the lighter one, I'm not sure in terms of living with if you had kids and spilling stuff on these seats, how long they would last, but it certainly airies up the cabin. It's beautiful in here. There is a sunroof, but it's only if you're like an old school traditional size one. It's not full pan roof, but that does make the car lighter in the back. And then the sloping profile of the car from the outside, I thought it would have a bigger impact on headroom. Now, I'm not particularly tall in the body. All my height is in my legs. The front seat, that's very low to the floor. I can't actually put my feet underneath it. So it's as far back as it would need to be for me driving. But it's not too bad in here. It's just a really very funky place. I wonder what the front's like though. Now, the modern edgy looks on the outside definitely come on the inside, not just in the back, but the front. It has a feeling almost like you're sat in a concept car that came real. It happened. It's cool and edgy and different. I love this main center console here, and then underneath is this huge big storage bin, but on top you've got a couple of places to put drinks. You've got a wireless charge mat just there. Interestingly, your controls to drop the windows and do things like unlock the doors are here in the center console. So there's no controls on the door itself. The only thing you've got apart from the handle to get out is you've got the two memory seat option buttons on the driver's side. The rest of it's just beautifully sculpted. There is a little bucket at the bottom down there to put a drink, but there's no gear changer down the center console. That is on a stalk mounted to the right hand side of the steering wheel. Not a massive fan of that, if I'm honest. I mean, it cleans up that bit, which is good. Let me just start the car. Now, I've got comfort entry seat, so the seat should now come into my position for driving. A few bings and bongs. This car has lots of bings and bongs. We need to talk about that once we take it out for a drive. The infotainment system, well, I've recently, last week, had the Kia EV6 GT. It's the same. The Kia and Hyundai share the infotainment system, so I'm quite familiar with that now. I also had the Sorento Long-Termer that had a very similar set of features. You've got real buttons down here to interact with the main touchscreen there, and real haptic buttons there to interact with your climate control, which I really like. The other standout feature are the two screens either side of the dash, which I mentioned when we were talking about the rear cameras. They're at a weird angle, I guess, but I think you'd get used to those. It just looks different because we're not used to having screens there. But everything else in here is nice and light and airy. But yeah, it's good. So, plans for driving. We're going to go out and have a bit of a drive in a moment. I want to kind of talk about the different modes, but what I want to do is a long-range test because I have a feeling that this car will be very efficient when I'm driving. I don't think I've ever had an EV go over 4 miles per kilowatt hour. And I've got to go on Saturday, we're driving to the Cotswolds, and I thought I'd take this and see if I can break 4 miles per kilowatt hour on a journey of about 110, 120 miles. So we'll go out for some drives and then we'll finish up by doing a bit of a range test. But first impressions of the interior, it's a really nice place to be. So let's go out for a little drive before my long range test tomorrow. The car's currently at 43% charge, 108 miles of range, but I'll put it on the charger overnight so it's got a nice full battery pack in the morning. I've got to admit, I am finding reviewing EVs quite difficult because they're all very, very similar to drive, especially when you've got shared platforms across manufacturers like Hyundai and Kia. You get in an EV with 300 odd horsepower and they all pretty much drive the same. There's no character of the engine, there's no character of the gearbox, it's just point and squirt and off you go. And it takes a whole bunch of stuff you can talk about out of the review, unfortunately. In terms of driving position and comfort, it's very, very nice in here. It's also, the ride quality is very, very good, and it soaks up the bumps in the road, and you know, over a longer journey, that's what you want. I'm currently in eco mode, but can you hear that? I just went 61 miles an hour indicated speed. GPS is probably still under 60. but it has a speed warning bong. It does the speed sign recognition thing, which is fine, but a bit like the Lexus I had earlier on in the year, it bongs when you exceed the speed limit. Well, I know some of you are instantly going to say, don't exceed the speed limit then, but even when you're like 1 or 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, listen, oh look, you've got to go, there you go, you need to go 3 miles an hour over the indicated speed limit. And that's really annoying, and you can turn it off, but you have to go in every time and turn it off, and I just find that annoying. And I know it's all to do with safety regulations, and I can imagine it's not going to be that long before it doesn't just bong, it literally physically stops the car from going any faster. You may well be able to see the mirrors. I've tried to put this POV camera just over my shoulder so you can see the mirrors. The view's pretty good. I've got a car behind me. He clearly wants access to the boot. I might give him the key, see if he wants to, get in there and be safe. So the view is good like that. And actually, under normal driving conditions, it's fine as long as you don't look out the window rather, and look at the actual camera and look at the screen. It works just fine. As I said, it's just the manoeuvring that's a bit of a pain. Come into the car park, my local pub, just to try and demonstrate. I'm going to back into a space over here, and it's going to be very difficult to put this on camera, but so normally you'd come up to your space like that, and I know modern day cars, as soon as I put this in reverse, I'm going to have some parking cameras appear on the main screen. But I start to look at the mirrors. Now this one in particular, what I would probably now do is I'd then start to vary my gaze to move the image on the mirror, and I can't do that. And I just find it, I know people will say you supplement it by using these, but I'm old school me. I like to look out of a mirror and see what I'm doing. So you're reversing, it just makes it more difficult than it should be. Drive mode wise, I've got Eco, Normal and Sport. I've just put it up into Sport mode, and I want to just sort of have a feel about what this all-wheel drive platform is like. So if I accelerate away, it's by no means a slouch. It's not nearly as fast as something like that EV6 GT I had the other week, but it's got the punch, it's got that kind of instant torque that you want, and the performance is ample. I mean, it gets this car down a road in a really good way, and I'm guessing if you're going to go for the Ultimate and you're going to go for the twin motor setup, you want that. And since when was 0 to 60 in 5 seconds not quick? I mean, that's really, really good performance for any car. I think we get spoiled nowadays when cars are doing 0 to 60 in 4 or 3 seconds or something. You don't need that. Into this corner on the brakes. I've not got a huge amount of regen set at the moment, but I'm just going to punch out the corner, and again, nice pull out the corner. It's got nice road manners, really nice road manners. Have to be careful not to get the bings and the bongs though. Now, interestingly, the accumulated trip information on this car, although the car's actually done over 8,000 miles, it's been a hard work press car, this one. The accumulated information is the last 4,300 miles, there or thereabouts. 123 hours of driving, and it's averaged over that time 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour, which for a press car I don't think is too bad. What I want to do is see if I can get that over 4. So I'm going to go home, I'm going to put this car on charge, and then tomorrow we're driving to the Cotswolds. I'm actually going in 2 separate cars. Tracy's going to go in the Defender, my Hendy long-termer, and I'm going to go in this. And then I'm taking the Defender to London on Sunday, and Tracy's coming back in this. Okay, it's now the next day, and this car, comfort entry, this car's been on charge all evening. Bings and bongs. Very good. So I've basically got 100% battery has given me 268 miles. That's pretty good, considering, this car will have been a press car and been driven relatively hard. And I'm going to do the trip information. I think I'm going to do it after recharging. I'm going to reset that. So that will be my benchmark for the journey. So on we go. We're going to basically rendezvous with Mrs. Greaves in Chichester and put Darcy in the Land Rover, and Hallie's going to come with me, and then we're going to go in convoy to our route, which is 134 miles. So off we go. Okay, we've rendezvoused with Tracy. We've done a dog swap. So the petrol pooch is in the Defender and the petrol pup is in here with me. So we are on our way to the Cotswolds. The reason we've got two vehicles, I think I've mentioned already, is tomorrow morning I'm actually off to the Formula E in London, and we'd already planned this evening, so we're going to see some friends who are off to a nice restaurant this evening. So tomorrow the plan is that I will drive into London in the Defender, because my bike's in the back of that, and I've got a bike ride with Michelin on Monday. So Tracy will drive this back, and then it gets picked up on Monday, which is why I'm not taking it to... Anyway, I won't bore you with the complexities of it. But yes, I love following the Defender because it just looks wicked. Absolutely wicked. Love that car. So the plan for this, I just want to see the kind of range that we're going to get, or the efficiency rather. The range actually on a full charge is pretty impressive, but it's the efficiency number I want to see. Is this car as slippery as it looks and as it's made out to be? See, now this is why smart motorways and getting rid of the hard shoulder is just rubbish. So I'm in some traffic, there's no hard shoulder at the moment, we've got ambulances and a police car going up the outside lane, and there's literally nowhere for anybody to go. That's why we have hard shoulders. Sorry, I'm on the phone to Tracy. I'm doing a bit to camera, Greaves. What are your thoughts of there not being any hard shoulder?
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's not good, is it?
Well, somebody could die while everybody's basically unable to move anywhere.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, not good. Not good. Anyway. Yeah, so we'll come off the next one, Greaves.
We're definitely coming off at this junction.
There's another ambulance behind, actually. There's another one.
Oh my God.
I know. Okay, this is not good. There's obviously been a very big accident here.
I know, but I can't move. Oh my God, what is going on? 2 fire engines.
Got two fire engines, 3 ambulances, air ambulance in the sky. That's a biggie. A real biggie. Okay, nearly at our destination. So I've done 143 miles. It's taken 3 hours because of that problem we had on the M3. And because of that and the fact we needed to get here at a certain time, we've pushed on a little bit, and it's not been the best range test possible, put it that way. So yeah, the miles per kilowatt hour have suffered a little bit because we've been sat on the motorway at kind of motorway speeds. That said, it's not too bad. So we have got 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So I've done 143 miles. I've still got 112 miles of range left. I've still got 44% of the battery pack. And I think for the type of driving I've been doing, that is pretty impressive, to be honest. You know, I could still drive for another probably hour to maybe hour and a half, possibly even 2 hours before I needed to charge. I wouldn't do that because that would mean then like 4 to 5 hours in the car, but pretty impressive. The pooch is still fast asleep, honey dude. We're nearly there, very nearly there. But anyway, I've enjoyed my time in the IONIQ6. There are a few things I'm not that keen on, but overall as a package it's a very impressive car, and certainly the kind of the range this morning when I had 100% of charge, that's a usable number. It's a really big usable number. And the high-speed charging, if I could go and find a rapid charger, I could build that back up to 80% really quickly. As it happens, we're staying with a friend who's got an electric car, so hopefully we'll get a couple of hours on his charger this evening, and then Tracy can drive this car back tomorrow. But if you enjoyed that, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. Too many bings and bongs in this car though. Anyway, I'll see you on the next film, guys. You take care. But last cool feature, look at that. That is still one of the coolest features of any Hyundai or Kia, that blind spot camera is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's it, mate. So guys, you take care. Drive safe.